Hi, I'm Nate Seberg, and this is One Day Ahead. Welcome to One Day Ahead, The Lord of the Flies, Chapter 3. In this web series for teachers and students staying a day ahead of the class, we dive into a summary and analysis of William Golding's 1954 classic. If you're teaching this material, check out my Lord of the Flies unit. It's got everything you need, link below. As ever, these are not spoiler-free videos, fair warning, but if you're good to go, then grab your spear and keep your eyes open for big shit, because it's time to head to Chapter 3, Huts on the Beach. So Chapter 3 begins with Jack holding a spear on the trail of a pig. Jack seems quite adept at hunting. In fact, we will come to learn that he has become obsessed with it. We also get this: his sandy hair, considerably longer than it had been when they dropped in, was lighter now, and his bare back was a mass of dark freckles and peeling sunburn. So obviously they've been there for a while, but these references to long hair, and there are a lot of them, more on them later, that is the way that I guess we measure in hair time now. It's the best we can do. So they've been here for 2 inches or something. Really, no one is keeping track of the days. Jack tracks the pig, tosses his spear, misses, and heads home. Exhausted and thirsty, he returns to camp, where Jack finds Ralph and Simon building shelters. Ralph and Simon have just learned what every parent already knows, that little kids are garbage at manual labor. Ralph says they keep running off. Do you remember the meeting? How everyone was going to work hard until the shelters were finished? They're hopeless. They're off bathing or eating or playing. Ralph is frustrated and primed for a fight. And Jack has just spent his whole day hunting pig. But it quickly becomes clear that his time tracking is about much more than meat. Jack is in a place. When Ralph asks why the other hunters came back early, Jack says, "I went on. I let them go. I had to go on." He tried to convey the compulsion to track down and kill that was swallowing him up. The madness came into his eyes again. So yikes. Ralph and Jack end up in a shouting match about the importance of food versus shelter, which let's go check with Maslow for a hot second. We need them both. This fight is the result of some really misplaced frustrations because they are the only ones, save Simon, actually working at all towards the group's survival. Next up, while talking, something strange happens to Jack. He forgets what rescue means, which is insane. Ralph says kind of stupidly, "The best thing we can do is get ourselves rescued." That's top notch, Ralph. But then we get this. Jack had to think for a moment before he could remember what rescue was. Rescue? Yes, of course. All the same, I'd like to catch a pig first. He snatched up his spear and dashed it into the ground. Their pseudo-conversation/fight ends with this quote, highlighting the widening gulf that has opened between the two boys. They walked along 2 continents of experience and feeling, unable to communicate. The chapter closes by following Simon. He's a strange kid, and the other boys have started to notice. In these brief chapters, we are starting to sense that Simon sees things more clearly and perhaps feels more acutely than the other boys. This sets him apart from his peers, and him constantly fainting probably doesn't help either. Simon is walking out into dense jungle solo for a little me time. He has this Zen secret leafy meditation namaste spot he found where he can close in the bushes and just be alone in nature. But before he gets there, he sees a group of little ones, and Simon found for them the fruit they could not reach, pulled off the choicest from up in the foliage, passed them back down to the endless outstretched hands. So in this book about the latent evil that lurks in us all, about the disintegration of societal norms and the rise of barbarism and unchecked power, here is a character who does something nice for no reason. I mean, guys, don't get too attached to Simon because he's going to die. And that's chapter 3. So each chapter we're going to explore the themes and characters by going just a step or two beyond what's on the page. This is Deep Dive Quotes. So we're going to return to this fight between Ralph and Jack to see what they're all about, and we're also going to loop in Piggy and Simon while we're at it. Speaking of the leaders, they walked along 2 continents of experience and feeling, unable to communicate. "If only I could get a pig," Jack says to himself. "I'll come back and go on with the shelters," Jack responds. So the kids in the first chapter saw this whole thing as a big old party. The sheer adventure of it all served to mask the simmering conflict at the heart of the book. Here, the conflict finally finds the light of day for the first time, embodied in an argument between Jack and Ralph. I wouldn't worry about it though. probably won't get worse than this. So we have talked a little bit already about the different ways this story can be read. Like, you can read this as a simple adventure novel, albeit a dark one, or a super brutal coming-of-age story for Ralph, or even a retelling of evil's introduction to the Garden of Eden, embodied by the scar and the boys who knocked down the door to paradise. However, another lens to look through, if you're into that sort of thing, is to see each character as representative of aspects of the human experience. Piggy is a good example. His specs, his elocution, his analytical mind, he represents scientific aspects of modern civilization. He's the most rational member of the crew. It's his glasses that are used to start the fire, and he is constantly frustrated and frankly flabbergasted by the illogical actions of the emotion-driven boys. Ralph represents civilization. He is the rule of law, the pole of morality, and the wisdom of democracy. He shows this here by building huts, showing that he is thinking of the welfare of the group and building consensus through a popular election and other corporate decisions made at the meetings. Contrast him with Jack. Jack is the base urges that lurk in everyone, at least according to Golding. He is the pull toward exercising power, the desire to dominate, to control, to kill. He shows this in his endless drive to hunt. He justifies this by saying, "We want meat," but it's clear by his inability to even articulate this compulsion he feels to hunt, and by the way he relentlessly pursues his quarry when everyone is off swimming, that this is not about protein. This is Jack's thing. This is blood and power and dominion, and it stands in direct contrast to the symbolism embodied in Ralph. Finally, our boy Simon is more complicated. If Ralph is morality born of civilization, then Simon is goodness itself. Morality is what happens when civilization wins the fight with our more base instincts, but where morality is taught, it's instilled as a top layer by society. In Simon, we find goodness that is innate. He is kind because kindness is just his way. This purity in Simon, it complicates things a bit because it undercuts the straightforward civilization versus savagery conflict that's at the heart of this story. What is clear, however, when looking at this story through this lens is that if this is going to be a tale about the darkness that lurks in the heart of everyone, then pure, simple, innocent goodness has got to die, which is not good news for Simon. And that's chapter 3. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to check out my teaching unit and my other stuff. Next week, we turn to chapter 4, where Roger throws some rocks, Jack finally stabs something, and the kids blow their best chance at getting rescued. All that and more next time on One Day Ahead.